back onto the whole situation. Well, I'm going to wait till I read it to everybody too. It was a good write-up. This one that you did for 69,
Oh,
episode
right.
69. I love that that overview. Very good. Very, very appropriate for a lot of stuff going on. We got 6 people in. We have to give it another minute and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're moving forward with that. I guess we're going to meet again Sunday, if we can, all of us, and take it a little further. Got some information. Tickets should go on sale this weekend. And I talked to a friend of mine who's got an inventory of black shirts that he's had for a while that I've had my eye on. So we might just pick those up and play with those, get your portrait and put them on a few, and people can take them home. We'll see. How's it going, everybody? We got 40 people in the house. Got Franco's in the house. He was just here 2 weeks ago, and I actually have been conscious of how we ended it because I had a question. He said, well, let's talk about it next time. So I'd love to get into that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I'd love to get into that. And but also I want to get into this episode 69, which I haven't been able to watch yet. But the overview really speaks to, kind of like, are you ready to walk the talk, kind of thing, right? So that's cool. Okay, I think we can get started. So the last time,
just sharing.
Oh yeah. Well, let me just tag you on it. I'm thinking about it. Oh, there you go. I didn't see that was you collaborated with Facebook on that. I just saw that. I've done that a few times.
Yeah, no, I usually go onto your thing to share it over.
Right on. Let's see.
One other. Okay.
Man, we're really getting suppressed. Looking at these numbers. Well, it'll pick up in about 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes. So yeah, the last time we got together 2 weeks ago, I ended with a comment. I ended the show and I was like, I wanted to ask you about our galactic aspects. Because the reason I wanted to ask you is because it just kind of makes sense to me. But then again, the minute we think something makes sense, then there's something else there. But
right.
What I was getting at was that, so since about November, December, there has been an increasing amount of, let's just say, galactic disclosure, articles and stuff like that, information. You got this ex-Israeli space chief. I think this was November. And, he's 89 years old. And he says, we've been talking to our ET brothers and sisters for a long time. We even have a base on Mars, and the Americans have people working side by side with the ET indigenous there. Then you see, CIA released their voluminous, interactions with ET, which amounted to like 3 videos. And then you have like this pilot in New Mexico, and he's got a cigar-shaped UFO running side by side. And of course, all this stuff's coming from the mainstream media, and it's been talked about for years that there would be a soft disclosure, and and it could be a Project Blue Beam, lead into a Project Blue Beam and a fake alien invasion. I hate to even use that word because it doesn't really apply, but I guess it does to a false narrative. Right. So I thought, well, if the soft disclosure is occurring as it seems to be, because it seems like every day I look, there's something regarding new technology. There was this, they just found this cosmic hurricane and they've never seen it before, and all this stuff, right? So I figured, well, if that's increasing and that's being perpetuated out there, what is the real story? Are we going to see more valid interactions, whether it be on a personal level or whether it be on a collective level, to kind of offset or counter what's being fed to us? That's kind of where I'm at with it. What What do you have? Do you have any? You seem like you picked up on it at the end of the show. You're like, oh yeah, I can talk to that.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but at the same time, there's been a lot of push in the regards to, right now, suppressing it is really backfiring in a big way. So a lot of what you call the mainstream and a lot of other people that have, been involved in different levels in, say, governmental or other levels too, that have been kind of keeping everything quiet to keep under control everything so that people wouldn't know what's going on. It's gotten to a point where they can't do that anymore. First of all, because they're being pushed. In the sense when they're being pushed, I'm talking about they're being told if they don't, they're gonna look bad. They're gonna look like they've been involved in a really major cover up, and they're still suppressing it today. So they've kind of felt that I need to say something. There is, how can I say it softly? There is an effort by our brother sister souls from other dimensions for people that have been involved and been suppressing it. They have been, I don't like to use the word targeted, but they're being focused upon to be met in an altered state when, say, they're sleeping and so forth, and getting nudged and sometimes terrorized, or what looks like terrorized in a sense. And what I mean is just an intensified nudging for them to come out and say certain things. The other thing is, too, because the frequency of the planet is increasing, the sighting is becoming more prevalent because more people are seeing it, which wouldn't be able to see it before. So the thing is as long as you don't believe it exists, or it's really not the believing. Let me clarify that. A lot of people say, well, I have to believe it to see it. Well, the thing is, you have to drop the belief that it doesn't exist, and then you see it. Because belief is an adopted idea.
Right.
And so it's not like I have to believe it to see it. I have to disbelieve or drop the belief that it doesn't exist, the belief that, it's fake or anything of that nature. Once that drops, your vibration increases, your capacity to see actually opens up. So it's almost like you're taking out certain layers. For example, I think there was some examples talked about where there were some people that never had seen ships before. I'm talking about regular ships in the water, some natives and so forth. This goes back a long time ago. And because they had no reference of something like that, they wouldn't see it until it actually was in their face, sort of thing. And then it actually broke through that veil. So that's what's going on in that regard. Now, the reason that's going on is that it's actually creating an opening for people to be ready for it. See, the thing is, all of the beings I've worked with, they said that we're not here to interfere, but we are here to work with you alongside to actually, because there's two alien intervention. The one that actually supported the lower frequency, the ones that were involved with the inverted matrix, with the AI, with the moon transmission and so forth, that most of them are all gone. Okay. They've left because not only the planet's frequency, but humanity's frequency and so forth made it very difficult for them to play in that lower energy. There's still some, but that's only because a lot of people are still in fear and so forth. And everything that we're watching is playing out in the world right now stimulates that. The fear of a virus, the fear of, being reprimanded because you don't wear masks and do this or that, whatever it is, but also the fear of terrorism, fear of war, fear of, the environment, because that's another one, the environment's going to kill us and whatever else. So there's all these fears. And then, of course, everything that reflects it in everything that we're exposing. So that is the only little bit that's left. So as long as people are reacting, that's still holding a part of that active. But even that is breaking down because we've all felt it, especially anybody that's, more attuned now. And a lot of people are becoming attuned. Every single energy burst that we have a lot of stuff stimulated, not only within ourselves, but we also see the imposed matrix, which we are projecting out. It's not there anymore. It's starting to not only break up, but it's actually having skipping. It's like blocks of it disappears in a sense. So that level of what would be the energies holding it is no longer in that regards. So it's not about the beings coming in and say, okay, here we are, we're going to work together and so forth. They are intending to do that, but they're going to do that whenever it's ready. However, the preparation is to break it down, this disbelief that there's something else besides ourselves, right? So the more sighting and more people involved, especially people that are coming up that are kind of having a credibility because they're known for, maybe rationality, or known for being involved in the science or involved in something that people still put value in as an expert. Those are the ones that are coming up too now, and basically not saying, no longer hiding it. Especially pilots, anybody in the what do you call it, the traveling within space, or whatever it is, the space organizations and so forth, but also other people that have been observing and have worked in those quiet compartments within the government where they've actually had those interactions. The interaction's been going on a long time. If in fact, and I'm going to throw this out, in fact, this has been going on for thousands of years. All of these religions, all of these ideas that have been written about and so forth, about these deities and so forth, they were just aliens coming in from a dominant state, a lower frequency, and creating the illusion and saying, we are your gods and you need to obey us. These are what you have to follow suit. Now, if you actually look at it, there's a little bit of truth seated in the middle of whatever has been written, but a lot of it, especially the older texts, the ones that are kind of constructed a certain way, really emphasizes on good, bad, right, wrong, wars, destruction, and so forth. Because one of the things is for them to be able to have a good grasp of humanity, even though we adopted all of this stuff, is to keep that vibration very low. So this is why the separation came. The moment you see yourself isolated from everything and you're now in survival mode, you lower not only your frequency, your capacity, and you feel that you are fending for yourself. When our true design is cooperation, collaboration. So this is why that separation was. But then the separation was also included from your higher self to your lower self. And when I say lower self, it's the lower self that uses the consciousness that can actually embody a physicality, and one of a higher state that actually is beyond the physicality in access of consciousness and so forth. So all of those things were set up in such a fashion so that you felt isolated, and then you can give power to this deity, this overwhelming power, this God, or this, whatever that, it's been named as, as sort. So then they started building, say, religions and so forth later on, saying, well, if we come together and we worship this deity, then we will be saved, then we will be together. So first create the separation, then we come together within the construct. But the construct was designed in such a fashion where you're never allowed to think outside of what is dictated as a way of life, or, this is how it is. And the fact that you have to honor and pray and what do they call it, worship and things of that nature to a deity, it actually lowers, it creates a level, a tier. So here you are, the wretched ones or the lower ones that have to abide to this higher level, and you have to worship this to be able to even have the right for that. And those were all created constructs. So when people asked me some time ago, or quite a few years ago, and at different times, like, where did these religions come from, and where these ideas are from? Well, those were planted and also by intervention. So the beings, of course, there are different ones that work at different frequencies. The lower ones that actually put all the invert stuff in, they were showing up and reminding that, hey, we are your authority. We are your gods. You have to worship us. We tell you if you're worthy or not. We tell you how to live your life. We give you instructions to kill each other, do whatever, because we'll deem who's good or bad or whatever it is. It was all of that construct that was going on. And then to create more separation, multiple religions were established. So that now they're they're fighting each other. So there's not one God, there's several.
And 5,000. From my research, there's 5,000.
So, they created more fragmentation. And so all of this stuff that's going on, I'm just noticing I'm peeking here. All of these fragmentations that were set up was to create this separation. Now we're starting to realize all of it. And the thing is, too, we also been programmed to a certain degree to believe that these so-called aliens, the ones that actually started to accept it, is that we have to fear them because they're going to come and destroy us or anything of that nature, to actually allow us. So any interaction would be reacted as an enemy rather than a brother sister soul that has the same intention. Because you have to understand, even the ones that played in the lower realms, they're still our brother sister souls, and really we have the right to say, do I comply, do I choose to play or support this or not?
Right.
So this is the thing, they have no power over us as we don't have power over them. However, because of our own each individual sovereignty, that we can make our own statement of saying, no, we're not complying, or no, we're not going to play that. No, you don't have any allowance, or I don't give you rights to, and they can't do anything about it, because that is the layout of spirit, the layout of sourceness, that you don't interfere with one another. And that's where the oneness and unification is, where you allow each other to be themselves, but to also work together to create an environment that harnesses the maximum or a constant expansion of each other. So when people talk about, the law of one, or the law of whatever, the higher laws or the natural laws or anything of that nature, well, basically it's not so much a law, it's a construct that you do not interfere with one another. And this is why everything that has been done up to then is always required our permission to accept or not to accept. Even the so-called 3D laws or inverted 3D laws that exist, unless you comply, they have no power. Right. And it's an illusionary. It's like, I'm going to scare you to believe that we have power. But the thing is, as long as you're saying, oh, okay, they're authority, then the moment you say that they have authority, you're giving them an allowance. But that was okay for a long period of time because, hey, we wanted to have that experience. But right now we're realizing, wait a minute, we don't have to comply. And in fact, we are here to be ourselves, our so-called sovereign being, our use our free will to our degree, our own discretion, rather than being convinced how to use it.
Right on.
So our brother souls are playing a lot of roles, but I'm going to let you go ahead. I'm going to stop.
No, I'm good. I just want to go back around and conclude that first part of what you were talking about. So basically what you're saying, it sounds like, is that those that may be in the know, that are physically incarnated, to whatever degree that might be, because of the compartmentalization that supposedly and probably does exist in this multifaceted, whatever you want to call it, shadow government, or whatever you want to call it, deep state, whatever. But they're just like us. And so what you're saying is that they're being nudged or visited, and that's not necessarily a physical thing, but visited, nudged, influenced, impressed upon to kind of like get with the program, because the program is the program, and it's going to, the ascension is occurring, however you want to put that. And yeah, so like to me, there's like two personalities there. One would be the personality that's deep within this, I mean, this is theoretical, but like, oh, I'm part of the cabal. We've been here for centuries. We are the elite. And at the same time, we have this esoteric knowledge. We kind of knew this day was coming, and you can't fight Mother Nature or Mother Universe. And they might take a prodding that might be a little bit terrifying, like you were referring to. Then there's the others who have just been kind of like the good soldiers who have been kept in check based on threats or fear. And some of those are starting to say, you know what, I can't ignore this guidance I'm receiving, just as we've all come to this place because we've done crazy things and walked an atypical path because of the guidance we're receiving. So yeah, that's a great energetic explanation. Did I miss anything on that part of it?
No, you did really well. And the thing is, I like what you said there, because I'm going to just expand it a little bit. The beings that are working with us and so forth, they're just like us. They are just at a certain level of evolution. But again, their evolution is going to be very different than our evolution. And the reason I say that is because one thing I understood with them since I started working with them many years ago when I was a young person, they made it very clear that, yeah, we have a certain level of expertise, like anybody on the planet would have expertise in a particular, area in their life, for example, right? For like a science or whatever, you'll have a certain expertise. They have their expertise in, based on all the incarnations they've had, all the advancements they've had, and the consciousness they've been able to access. And, it's just because they've taken on the role to work with us. And the reason they're working with us, because they were involved to some degree when planet Earth was encoded, and also they were kind of, overseeing some parts of it. But even the roles have changed, in the sense it's not always been the same beings all this time, because other ones, they progress, they go somewhere else. There's others that are coming in. So what they had said to me, and I'm sure that this will make sense to you, is that the reason we work with you guys directly and have this beautiful relationship and so forth is because we're not on the ground, and we don't have your physicality. We do not have your history. We are like in the stands. We can watch the game. We have an idea of the game, but we're not playing the game. We don't know how it all feels, to the degree that you guys do. And this is why even the ones that choose to incarnate in human form, they have to learn the human experience. They have to go through the experiences. Like even my soul that has come from a whole different universe and that was involved in the retooling of planet Earth had to learn how to interact in the human game. So it relied very much so with not what the body was in, only the body was involved, but whatever connections it had with other humans on the planet, with the energies and everything else, and also the interactions and so forth. So they never ever said that we're your superior. We are working with you. We have a certain skill set. We're just doing some things that you may not have gone to the level to be able to use it because of certain levels of suppression. And even though the suppression may have served, but what can we be of service without in removing any self-empowerment? And what can we be of service without feeling that you guys have to be saved, or feel that we're taking away the capacities to advance through experience? So that's the interactions they've had. So even when I've been on many of their councils and so forth, they're always looking back for feedback. And I'm not like the only one, okay? There are other humans that actually are interacting with them all over the world that are giving feedback, are also receiving updates within themselves. And they go out and not only create a change in the energy field and the consciousness and so forth, but they're also sharing with others what's going on. Now, as for face-to-face visitations on the planet, that's been going on for quite a long time. And there are humans on the planet that do meet them, that do meet up at certain areas. Usually it's not in a populated area. The reason you see the ships in the populated area, it's to create the readiness of sorts, to see that, hey, wait a minute, we're not here alone, isolated as this human on this kind of a planet and so forth, and there's nothing outside of that. Because even the religions used to promote that. But eventually, even that started to break down. So they had to say, well, okay, God did create more than just humans, because there's too much proof showing up and too many people that were closed-minded that are actually saying, hey, wait a minute, we can't deny this anymore. It's coming up more and more to the surface. So the dance that we're doing with them, there's a beautiful exchange, and how could we be of service? And at the same time, the thing is, what we call ascension process, that people call ascension process, is removing descension that was there before. See, because we were already fairly ascended, and then we descended when the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D, 2D came in, when we got the ego, whatever. So that's the reversal process that's happening, but it's not stopping and just bringing us to where the level we started from. We're going further ahead. And so as we're doing that, even our brother sister souls are learning. They're actually advancing with us, maybe in a little different way, because they are very attentive to, how can I say, by observing how we move forward, what we do, coming from where we went to in the sense of descension and ascending now, that it actually allows them to give them a new design for future or other planetary playground designs, and also new forms of life forms in physical forms. So there's a great interest to that. Now, the other part is our planet, and maybe I've said this before, but during the show, but I'll say it in a minute. We are the galaxy that we're in is cut in quadrants. So when I say cut, I mean there's quadrants that are in a certain band of frequency that all the planets within there interact with each other, in a sense, or have a similarity of interaction. We are kind of in the hub of that quadrant. Okay? So the reason that they looked at it, I'm talking about the whole solar system, but our planet in specific has kind of taken the hub role. And the purpose of the hub role is to have a unification, communication, exchange point. So all of these planets actually move in and out, because planet Earth is a major hard drive of sorts. I'm using that as an analogy so people can. This hard drive is a self-evolving hard drive. And that hard drive is a sentient being we call Gaia. Okay. Now, we are also this hard drive. So the thing is, within our essence, our own essence, we have a seeding of all of those 400 planets that are connected more intimately to us. That's even going beyond what we're talking about, the species that are actually connected in our DNAs directly. So there's more to that. So this is the thing, original design, and I'll share this, and I've shared it before in the past, but maybe not in the show here, is that planet Earth, when it was retooled, first of all, they did something that was never done before. They went the extra mile by a lot. They stretched the capacities to be able to do it. So they wanted to create the hub as a multi species inhabitant place. So in fact, this is why we have so many species of plant life and of animal life and of insect world, of reptilian world like reptiles and whatever, birds and oceanic and so forth. But also to be able to harness a multitude of different spectrums of frequencies within the planet itself, and then also created the humanoids that are multi-species and have the capacity to store a tremendous amount of information. Now, of course, we do have that resource, but we may have not been using it because of all of the other reverse stuff that we had. So the design was that, being the hub, it was going to be like an international airport. I'm using that as an example, where many different species would be able to come on the planet, and we would not only recognize them, we would have the multiple capacities to communicate with them telepathically, relate with them energetically, and also to host them to a certain degree. Now, every visitation would be an expanded version for them, and it would be an expanded version for us. The technologies that they would bring is one thing, but the technologies we would share as a response would be another. And then the level of transportation would be enhanced. So all of this was in the works in the original design 15,000 years ago, and it was being prepped along for the 5,000 years before the inverted stuff came in. So now there's that whole reversal process to bring it back online. Now, we have been quarantined. We have been offline for a long time. We are back online, except that what we are receiving is streamed, meaning that it's reduced so that we don't get too much flow, because there are too many so-called humanoids that have created so many layers of restriction that their capacities of having all these inputs would be too shocking for them, and they would complete shutdown, basically. So all these waves that are coming in not only are changing us, but are also reactivating us so that more of the streaming could open up. Once that does, more of that streaming, you will see more of alignment with the frequencies of Gaia, so that we will have, as Gaia, multiple spectrums from organic 3D for only a few years anyways, until 2035, but multiple spans of organic 3D to organic 12D, and we could fluctuate as we meet our brother sister souls as visitors, and we visit much more easily. So you can go on an alter state and visit any other planet, and you will be able to take on a temporary encodement to be able to visit there. That's what we're all designed to do, okay? And we're also designed to never, so-called, die. There's always a constant rejuvenation. Even the aging process was only part of that encodement that was there. When that original platform was that, the minimum point was 1,000 years. You could have gone to 2,000, and you also had the option for multiple extensions, so that you could be infinite in a sense. So that was all part and parcel of all that was encoded. So if you really look at what we have capable capacities of, it's totally mind-boggling in a sense when we look at it from that perspective. When you can see it from that perspective, Todd, game that we're playing here, you can't give it realism. You can't allow it to, squash you, because all of a sudden we had a news flash that says, oh my God, this is going to a second, a third wave, and we're having this or that, or the fact that we have lack, or that we have this government that's telling us what to do, and so forth. That would be like a joke. In a sense, it wouldn't even be a joke. You wouldn't even be in your radar. At that point, when you see that, but you also can have an appreciation of what that entails through that experience, but not being limited to it. So all of these powerful pulses are basically the reversing process the reactivating process, and the new encodements. And what are these new encodements? These new encodements are to bring us back online a little high, because you have to understand, we have not evolved very much for the 10,000 years. Yes, we are on fast track since 1987 and further in 2012 and further in 2020. But the same thing is, the codes that we've had within ourselves were like peak, awesome, amazing 10,000 years ago, but are outdated now. So that's what the encodements are. And those encodements allow us to not only access higher consciousness, but allows us to tune to the frequency that resonates, which is created within the galaxy quadrant that we're in.
Right.
This is why we're receiving direct energy from the center, what we call the galactic sun, or central sun, which is basically an energy field. It's actually a sort of a crystal energetic field that takes the pulse of all four quadrants. That is coming directly into our solar system. Our sun has actually been being upgraded accordingly, so the spectrum of light and frequency, so that we're getting much more higher frequency from our sun, from our galactic sun. The crystal in the center of our Earth, we call the inner sun from our inner Earth, that actually has been stimulated and upgraded in a very powerful way. So that is emanating through Gaia. So we're feeling energies coming through Gaia from that crystal, which we call the inner sun. And we're also getting it from our own sun, and a direct energy coming from, and spectrum of light coming from the galactic central sun. And then each of our planets that are in our solar system, even some of the ones we're not seeing at this point in time, are also contributing. So there's so much changing. So what's happening is the universe is renewing within us in physical form, and in all of our body forms, and also in our energetic field. And even, so what's happening is, not only is our physical innate capacities increasing, our human entities going through an expansion, and so is our souls. Now, some of the souls have come, like star seeds and whatever. What are star seeds? Star seeds are basically souls that have been tuned from a solar system or a star system, and that have been encoded and have a very specific role, that have embodied in a human form, and now they're playing a role in this advancement. The other ones we call the indigos, what do they call it? The indigos, rainbow kids, and I think there was crystal kids, and all those other. There's the Blu-rays and all of those. Those all have certain components to very specific tasks they have taken in. So they come in with certain energy, and they actually rewire the mind to a certain way, so that they don't get boggled down by all the programming. They're actually involved in upgrading the programs. So some came down to take down some of the structures. Some are kind of creating the bridges. Other ones are creating the new. But all of us, the thing is, we're not limiting ourselves to, all of us are playing a role to one degree or another. It doesn't matter if we're stuck in playing in polarity, or if we're advancing at this point in time. Look at how many people are coming on board right now. Look at how many people are waking up, like it's said. More and more people are coming online, because what's happening is, a lot of the barriers and constructs and so forth, because that's all it is, an illusionary construct of what that we are a physicality, that this is our own reality. Those are crumbling, and our true nature is coming more and more to the surface. And this is why this level of realization. And we're also saying, hey, wait a minute, this is just a game. No, this is not even real. We can change this. And by the way, yeah, we don't have to adhere to old constructs, old beliefs, old ways of life, and so forth. Because if you look at it, when you awaken, you look at the system and you go, wow, that's a pretty interesting system. We're talking about governmental, monetary, you name it, everything, religion, education, medical, you name it. You look at all of that stuff, and you can see the confines, the restrictions, and the focus to keep it in the box, sort of thing. And don't you dare get out of there. You get to see through all of that. You get to see, oh, wow, we played in all of that stuff. But we know that that doesn't even serve any longer, and this is where we're going. Now, of course, part of that is deprogramming ourselves, depatternizing ourselves, what do you call it? Deconstructing all of the self-construct. So when people say to any of us, I don't know who I am, that's a celebration. Cool. Because that says that you're finally starting to realize you are not what you believed you were for the longest time, because that was just an adopted idea. Because the moment you don't know who you are, you're open to see what you are, but what you are is not limited. You see yourself as the essence of all existence, as source, as spirit creator, and that has no boundaries, has no limits, and is not going to put itself in a box, is not going to be categorized or anything about nature anymore. And all of this is happening right now. Now, we have to also understand is that as much as it looks like a daunting task to shift through all of what's going on, because when you look at it, there's tremendous amount of rigidity and kickback from systems, but they're illusionary. And the kickback is only giving us the opportunity to not only feel the restrictions, but to also be able to incorporate more people to come to that realization, seeing that they're living an illusion that doesn't fit. They don't fit there anymore. This is why one of the things that people awaken is I don't fit in that game anymore. I don't fit maybe with my partner. I don't fit with my family dynamics. I don't fit in the work I was doing, or, you know, whatever organization I'm involved with or anything of that nature. Because that's, once you open up that part, then it's not about defining yourself by any of that or compartmentalizing yourself. It's about exploration, adventure of what we have capability. Like people say, when you open up the Pandora's box in this case, but what we're doing is when we're opening ourselves up, there's no way putting it back in the box. There's no way, because the moment it's opened, it blows up so big. To put it back in, I don't care how much fear is put in. Like once more people get on board, and there are more and more coming on board, like massive amounts. Imagine having all types of restrictions put in, you know, from say government, for example, say, oh my God, no, we got to lock down, we got to do this to the same degree, or maybe worse. You have to have a card that you have to prove that you had this or that, whatever it is. That would not even be applied, because not only people are not going to riot, but they're going to say, yeah, go ahead and put it where the sun doesn't shine, because we're not going there. Not only that, they're not going to be angry about it. They're going to say, thank you, I love you for your role, but you know something? We're done. See you later. Go with love. Go out and play, but you don't belong in our game anymore. So that's what changes.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a great explanation. It reminds me of, I think I told you about this on the last show. I saw this 17-minute Gaia video. It was Mateus de Stefano. Did I tell you about it? The formation of the earth. And it wasn't the literal aspect of it. I was looking at it energetically. What I found really profound was, as he was describing how this all came to be, and I'll skip through the creation part of it and all that, but basically that there was it was entitled, what is or why was the Galactic Confederation formed? And it was basically describing a council, a multi-universal council that was overseeing, to a degree, or at least making decisions in regard to how we all gain from this Earth experience. And so the way it was put is kind of in a narrative kind of fashion. But again, this is an energetic thing where I'm going with it. And it was like, okay, let's take a vote. Do we want to bring these humans into this atmosphere, into this frequency, into this dimension? And the majority of the answers were no. And they were no because of the power of the species itself. Although it was unbridled, and and it was also very much characterized by the emotions of the human, which were less familiar, if familiar at all, to many of the star family. So obviously the choice was made, but some of the inferences that he made were quite impressive in terms of the energetic force of this whole thing that we're on. And for instance, he said one species would be using this for this, and one would be using it for that. One of the things was, one of the comments was, well, one of the species, like for instance, utilized our energetic force that was just being like splayed out there to run energy on their planet, and just different things, right? But I thought it was a pretty powerful thing because from an energetic standpoint, because I've always felt that that's why I always ask you the question about what's the difference between the human entity and the soul, because to me, I've always felt like we're doing in this experience is we're actually bringing this species into a new epoch or a new dimension or new echelon, right? And it just made me go, wow, the human is the hero kind of thing. But I wanted to ask you, again, that all falls in line with what you just explained in terms of and what we're going to segue into in a second. But I wanted to ask you a more constructive, applicable type of, from the human standpoint. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we struggle with, and I can say that I don't have to struggle with it as much as I used to, but I know we've all been down this road, and that is the pressure of the linear timeline, deadlines, and all that stuff. The time between creating something and it physically manifesting. Would you say that just as star seeds or whatever come down here, they know they're not from this place, and that type of square peg into a round hole kind of predicament? Would you say that our lack of comfort with how long it takes for things to occur, even though they're happening faster, would you say that comes from our galactic lineage where we're used to being in dimensions where we can snap our fingers and something's done? Or is that programming from the human conditioning via the linear timeline construct?
Well, I mean, besides playing here, there is no time. There are sequences of changes and adjustments and so forth. There was never really any attention to time because there was no requirement to like you said, deadlines, or that we had to account for time for, say, aging or time of existence or any of that. Okay, I'm going to be in physical form for 80 years, 90 years, or sometimes if lucky 120 years or whatever. Stuff like that. So none of that existed. Many of our souls, because of the fact that they've been in non-form and have been on playgrounds that do not have time, for them to create something, okay, was pretty instantaneous. But then there was a clear focus. It was not willy-nilly, and it was not emotional driven. So, in a sense, there's a useful being used to it, and then coming into this realm where we have a reference of time, and things weren't created as quickly. Now, the reason the slowing down from imagination to creation or imagination to manifestation, the reason there was the delay is because of the fact that we have a fragmented way of processing our focus and our thoughts and so forth, where we got programmed, we accepted the programming of being very whimsical and very emotionally driven. So the delay was to give us enough focus in one area before we brought it in. Now, of course, beliefs also became part of the factor. If you disbelieve that it's possible, then that becomes a governing factor also. That is changing. but there's still a lag to a certain degree for some people, more of a lag than others, because of the fact of being not only deeply programmed that everything needs time, but at the same time feeling that there's still no direct focus point. Because the reason, when it's in your natural state, you shape your reality to provide you the opportunity to express and experience yourself in there, not to fill a void, not to fix anything, not in compensation for something else. So you're not in manifesting because, oh, I'm feeling lack and I need stuff. Okay. Or I feel that, if I don't have that stuff, who am I? Or something of that nature. Right. And none of that even applied. And that point is, and there's another factor to this. It wasn't solely saying, I'm going to create this for me. Yes, I choose to have this particular experience. I choose to shape my reality. However, I have brother and sister souls that are in my reality. How do I shape it so that what I'm choosing to experience creates a beautiful opening for them too at the same time, and aligns with them, and vice versa. So there was a beautiful dance and exchange. So if certain people decide to play with each other, then what people call co-creation, it's really individualized creations that merge and dance and create a beautiful offering to each other or to whatever the group may be at the time. So, but when that fragmentation came in, then it seemed like what I want, it has to be away from what somebody else wants. And, there was all that other fragmentation that occurred, and then the fragmentation of the capacity of the mind. So then the ego came in. So the ego came in, and the ego is schizophrenic. You have the emotions that the ego likes to use that actually creates various changes of reactions and so forth. So for us to create a feeling of anything of synchronicities or alignments, let's call it that, alignments was not easily possible because of the fact that a trigger comes in, an emotion reacts. You get, your ego mind's creating all these stories. Oh, I want this. I want that. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to bring this in, or that person, I want to kill them, or whatever it is. I hate them, or whatever. So all of these, there was so much, pulses of things and so forth that we would create a living hell of sorts if we had spontaneous creation. Because even if we looked at ourselves, how many times are we shifting from one state to another, depending on whatever is going on? And for us to be able to say, well, I want to be crystal clear on creating something, and I'm not running away from something, and I'm not creating something to compensate for something, or I'm not, going to change my mind in 3 seconds later, or whatever it is, until we get that more crystal clear. But then the crystal clear is not just because of the focus. The focus is, I live in this moment in my purest form, and now I correspond and communicate with myself and my environment and create something that is very nurturing, very cooperative, whatever, and all of us flourish. There's that still point. You're in a still point in your source essence. In that still point, you create, but it's not irrational creation. It's not impulsive creation. It's not a reactive from other interaction type of creation. It is very harmonious. It's very in alignment. That's the difference. And so that's the lag that was created. So many of us remember going into places where it's not like we have now. And it's like, oh man, I could just create something. But then when you start realizing where your mind is going, where your thoughts are going, where your emotions are going, where your energies are going, where your interactions are reacting, where your patterns are kicking in, you're almost like, oh, thank goodness that there's a lag there, because it would be like one massive chaos here. Look at it, imagine. You get angry and you have hatred, and that was spontaneous. What would you do? You would create a massive hurricane or destruction of some sort towards a brother sister soul, or towards a whole community. Look at it. How many people are starting to figure out that, hey, the government is this or that, or the systems are that? And how many people are reacting in anger, are reacting in unfairness, or we've been manipulating, whatever, and their emotions go up, their energies go up, their thoughts are going up. Could you imagine if that was instantaneously created a response to that? We would have, like, it would be like insane.
It would be the perfect storm. It'd be a multi-dimensional storm. It'd be a eradication of the...
Exactly. It would be a hell of a storm. A hell of a storm. So this is the thing. So this is why that was put in place for us to get to the book. So as we become more aligned, then the time sequence of between what you're feeling from wholeheartedness to creates. So many people that have been coming to that alignment notice things are shaping accordingly. Sometimes there's a little delay because they have a sub-agreement to play a particular role for others involved.
Right.
But then that actually, as soon as that's achieved, then the other parts come into play. So this is kind of, I've watched this some years ago. I think it was like a couple of decades ago, where I posed that question to my brother, sister souls. Okay. And I said, yeah, I mean, I understood it already, but I wanted to see what that looked like. So they allowed me to look at a simulated world. And then in that simulated world, there was no time lag from thought, impulse, emotional response to creation, to completely changing the reality. I'm telling you, it imploded. It just basically imploded. It's just like
taking like 6 seconds. Right?
It didn't take long.
Wake up and you didn't get enough sleep the night before.
Yes. So I'm going, whoa. Could you imagine you get pissed off at somebody and you go, man, I hate you. I wish you die. Boom, they're gone. Mm-hmm. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Some people but anyways.
Okay, so another thing I see that's really interesting is like what you talked about earlier with the natural law, universal law, whatever you want to call it, not being a law, but it being just what is. And so part of that is the non-interference. And then I look at us. And I look at it on our most base level, which is just human interaction. Me and you, me and this person, you and that person. And as we conduct our day, which is really in terms of presence, becoming louder and louder and louder. So there's a lot of programs that are being deconstructed. One of those would only make sense. It seems to be happening where we are staying in our own lane. Like, where we're learning to not impose our lesser God program onto somebody else. And it would just make sense to me that as everything's paralleling here, that by automatic pilot or through our work or both, that we're getting to this point where we're actually starting to act that way, where there's less interference. And that's kind of mind-blowing, because that would seem to me to be kind of a characteristic of, let's just say, the creator giving us a little bit more lag, a little bit more space to operate, because we aren't a threat, because we're becoming less of a threat, because we're not interfering. I mean, it's just, I find it really fascinating how we look at the narratives and go, oh my God, this was done and that was done and this, and then really we're doing it. It puts a whole other connotation on made in the image, because we think made in the image, well, I'm limitless and I'm all powerful, but we're also, the apple does, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree kind of thing, right?
Yeah. If we put our focus on what anybody did or anything of that nature, or what happened, even if we're looking back at our Akashic records and the Akashic records is to see, okay, what did we do, whatever, and how did that respond to us? What did we learn from it, or whatever it is? But even that's all dissolving. But if we're looking at oh, who did what happened, whatever it is. It's a major, major distraction. It lowers our frequency, and it doesn't allow us to create anything new. Especially when we feel that we've been harmed. This is why it's so important to use that neutrality, and what we call 0 point, and seeing perfection in all design, because that takes that takes the power of disempowerment from us. It takes that out of it, so that in fact, when I look at when people are saying, well, okay, this is all these narratives, all of these things, look at all the stuff that's been done, all this, harnessing and utilizing, children, women, this or that, or, all of this falsity of illusion and stuff that has been created where we've been enslaved and where we've never been able to be ourselves or whatever. If we're going to put any focus on that, people are saying, how do we move forward? You got to drop that.
Yeah. A story's a story, right? I mean, whether it comes from
a story, yeah. But the thing is, that was a great adventure. We visited, we went through it, we got to play with it, we agreed to have it to a certain degree, but hey, we're not there anymore. We're moving.
Yeah.
And you can't move if you're still looking at that. And so, this is one of the traps that come into, is that if we start putting a focus, look who's the evil ones and who are the control or the puppeteers or whatever it is and so forth. You want to see it and say, okay, that's where it's all coming from. Great. Thank you guys. No more service required from you guys. See you later. And we're creating something completely new. Then they all fade away. That's okay. But if we're going to go feel that, oh, this is why my life has been bad and this and that, and then you create trauma from it, you create all these stories and illusions, because none of that stuff exists. Even trauma is a story applied with some emotions. And then we create a pattern, and then we create a dependency, then we create a construct or a life stream along that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not here to say, because a lot of people are going to think, oh, these guys are crazy, or especially this one that called Franco. They're crazy. But listen, Todd, I'm going to be, and I'm going to use this as a punt, frank about this. If we really want to move forward in a powerful way, we can't look at anything that's happened. We cannot look at saying, hey, going back and visiting, how can I fix this or heal this? The wounds, they're illusions.
Yeah.
So with love, you dissolve the construct that was created, because it's just an energy field that we have associated and labelized. Put a label, that's a word I made up, labeled and defined about it, and then applied those labels and definitions to us. Unless you label and define yourself within an experience is just what it is, an experience. Yeah, so the thing is, the moment you can see the perfection, the beauty of, say, a parent being abusive, or someone else being abusive, or that you went through a traumatic situation labeled from a collective perspective from that inverted matrix, inverted consciousness of sorts, when you can just see it for the perfection it was, all of it dissolves, and there's not a redrudging and going back and dragging it out and saying, oh, look at this, I got to look at it and I got to heal from it and whatever else. That is an illusionary distraction that is still from that inverted matrix component. So once you realize that, because I've worked with people for 36 years, one-on-one, okay? And I've been teaching this stuff for 36 years, maybe not to the degree. What I'm talking about now, I have not shared to this level before. It just keeps expanding because humanity is more ready for it, okay? For me to talk to the same terms and having a conversation of this nature, say even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, I don't think we'd have much of an audience. And in fact, we would really be labeled crazy because we weren't ready for it. But now more and more people, of course, there's still people that think we're crazy. But the thing is, when I worked with people, we always looked at things. And I know it was tough, especially years ago, to look at things and actually look at, say, a parent, just as an example, a parent played a very negative role. Maybe there was sexual abuse. Maybe there was just physical abuse. Maybe there was only verbal abuse, maybe whatever, right? When we actually went back and looked at it and saw it as just a movie, a dance, or whatever it is, got to the forget about the whole forgiveness thing, go into acknowledging it, thanking it, loving it, and seeing it, just creating a little bit of shift, the whole view and all the emotional charges, all those labels and definitions started to just crumble. And it just changed, it created a chain effect along the way up to that current moment that we are in. So this is still applies. And now it's even easier than before. Because before, sometimes, a lot of times, for many years, until about 2013, 2014, regressional stuff was more of a necessity.
Right.
For people. Now it's a small amount of times that it actually is required, because everything is coming to the surface anyways, because of the energetics, because of evolutionary components that humanity is experiencing. So it's not, you don't have to look under a rock anymore.
Right.
The rock is lifting up. And
right. Yeah, I'm noticing that too. And you talked about the, which others have, about the central sun, right? And even our sun, and what and how is occurring in turn, and how that's affecting us. And you explained it really well a minute ago when you were talking about how basically this is encoding us, or decoding and encoding us, to where it's just becoming in being piecemealed, because that's how it needs to happen, because we don't want to fry. So I totally get, this, what you're saying, because I've watched it happen. I've watched it happen with myself, with other people. Morgan's a practitioner. I've seen how that's evolved, talking to other practitioners. But so where I'm going with this is like, that's occurring, right? I mean, this energy is coming from wherever it's coming from. Everyone's being affected. Everyone's being decoded and re-encoded, or however you want to put it. And I guess what I'm saying is, to tie it all together, is, we talked about the stories and the narratives, and it doesn't matter if it was Matthias Stefano's version of how this all happened, or my mother-in-law pissed me off and this is what happened. It's a narrative. And I just see this whole great divide discussion as, like so many things, you think you're looking out here, but it's right in front of your face. And it's me. I'm the divide. And as I listen to you, I go, okay, wait a minute. Really, all I got to do, and I know that sounds kind of, like, oh, that's easy, but all I got to do is be cognizant and conscious of my frequency, or my collection of frequencies, and be the frequency. For instance, somebody put up a comment that's made a lot in these platforms in regard to the children, right? Now, the children to me exist in this realm from that connotation, which is basically insinuating or alluding that I'm not a child. We're all children, so I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's an all or nothing proposition. If we believe what we are, and we believe we're made from what we have been made from, and we believe we believe in this playground, in this divine order, there are no victims at all. Everyone signed up for what they are experiencing through their own free will, which had occurred before we even got here. So what I'm trying to say is, if I feel, a lot of people feel like, okay, well, I'm not a victim. Well, that doesn't mean I'm not carrying the victim consciousness or the victim frequency, because as long as I think somebody's a victim out here, I'm actually perpetuating the old inverted matrix.
Correct.
So I feel like that there's a new metaphysical spirit science kind of shift occurring, which is obviously related to this energy coming in and this, this re-encodement or whatever. I feel like that it's changing all of our behaviors. It's changing the way we communicate. And I guess where I would sum this up and throw it back on you is there going to be a point where the discussion's over, where it's like, okay, we get this, we've got enough sustenance from the sun. We understand that we're frequency. This is all a story, and we don't even need to go there anymore. Like, and I mean, where it's something that's actually, anchored into the planet in a vast majority sense. Do you feel like there'll be something like that coming for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And then not only the discuss, I mean, the discussions only exist because the fact that many of us are, or many people are still, in the fringe of coming out of that illusionary game and so forth. So what we're doing is this discussion is actually opening them up because of their own knowing and so forth. But yes, we're going to get to a point where that's not even a discussion requirement anymore, because we're all there. We're understanding that now. Some will take certain roles to kind of share their perspectives and whatever. I shouldn't even say perspective, but whatever they're bringing in, because they're still being multidimensional souls that will be coming in and so forth. So even in that whole regards, okay, there'll be some, but not what we're doing now. It's definitely not required, because that knowing that we have within ourselves will be, will be fully experienced, and then we just basically play together and creating enhanced playground. There won't be any constructs like we have now. And when I say construct, meaning that the fact of having systems and structures to say, we'll have to have a legal structure, we have to have laws, or having what do you call it, certain compartments and so forth. That won't even be anything that will even exist, and that is not that far away. From what I'm looking at, it's most likely, from everything that's going, less than 20 years from now, to all of that disappearing and having all those structures in place. I want to bring back that one thing you said about the child. You have to understand, this is for all of us to understand. A child is still, the physicality of the child has 15,000 years of evolution in it.
Wow.
The human entity has 15,000 years of incarnations, multiple incarnations, multiple understandings of life. You have a soul coming in, a multidimensional soul that has been around and incarnated on various playgrounds. Now, some have incarnated less, some more, some never incarnated and are new incarnation, but they're bringing multidimensional aspects of it, and also a lot more of its source component. Just because it's in a small package doesn't mean it has anything less. It chose to go through that process. The growing up process will actually not take as long. I shouldn't be saying all this, but I'll tell you. So in the natural state, in a mother's womb, it doesn't have to take 9 months. And the growing from a small baby to what we consider adults will not have a rigid sequence of time. Okay, it can speed it up or it can go slower depending on what it is. The child core nature that we see a child coming into, that kind of openness and whatever else, that imaginative capacity already exists. We're still the child and we're the grown up at the same time. Okay. We just believed we outgrew our childish nature, but that childish nature is our natural nature.
Right.
Okay. The playfulness, the wanting to explore, having no limits, and so forth. But that is still limited to a certain degree, because our true child nature, in our true nature, in our environmental nature and our focus nature, actually will represent it much more freely. So We are the adult, we are the child, we are everything.
Right.
And you cannot look at a child and say, oh, this is a child, I got to teach this child. No, no, no. It's a dance. They're going through the phases. What people get involved in is trying to teach them to play the game. But in fact, it's not about teaching to play the game. It's to create an environment where they actually are themselves.
Yeah.
And while you're being yourself. And you see at that point, you don't have to boxylate, and that's another made up word.
I like that one.
Or in box or in package a child, because that's what a parent does. That's what systems do. Package the child to fit in a box, to create patterns and responses to what everybody else is doing from that enclosed small box world. That's not how it works. So a parent in its natural state will say, there's no way I need to box my child. I no way have to create patterns. I don't have to train it how to think or feel or respond or what is real and what is not. I allow it to just be,
right,
as I allow myself to be. And then you will see it's not the same dance that we're having now where, the child is reacting or whatever else. The child reacts because it doesn't want to be limited. The child reacts because it doesn't want to be told what to do. It's not about being told what to do. It's a sharing of consciousness while they get their grasp around it. But you have to, like I said, the bodies are 15,000 years in evolution. The human entity is 15,000 years of evolution. Souls can be billions of years of evolution. So you're packaging all of that in one physical representation. There is no freaking lack there, So it's just kind of what we've created as an experience.
Yeah.
And
that whole, that whole idea of child, it's a big one because, we're talking about soul here. I mean, who am I to tell you what you should or shouldn't do? Mm-hmm. Now, if you put that into the game here, then that looks like, oh, you're a bad parent, but no, I mean, we are energy beings, and, I guess we're getting more acclimated with the fantastic aspect and fairy tale aspect of what we really are and how that will actually apply. And that's what I'm seeing happening. What I'm seeing happening is how we're communicating with each other now. How there's silence becoming more a factor in our communication, or directness. And then it brings up other things like, because here in the spirit of who am I to tell you anything? But at the same time, we're transitioning going, okay, I need to be honest with you. I mean, where's that line at? I don't know if it's there, as like, are we making it? I mean, it's interesting. And that's why I brought up the point about at what point are we going to say, oh, snap. Okay, I'm a combination of frequencies. And if I nurture that and I, expand that or align it, whatever you want to call it, that's all I got to do. I don't even have to go revisit my old traumas from this life or other lives or ancestral lineage, or I don't have to do that. If anything, the experience seems to be becoming, from a let's just say an intelligence evolution, trajectory. It's becoming more of a, hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. It's not like, look what she did, look what he did. It's more like, hey, look at that. Look what's being shown to me, right? And that's kind of cool too, because I think that I would have to think, and I don't have the recall that you have, but I would have to think that's a pretty unique playground or laboratory to be in contrast to the other playgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is too, like my soul has shared a lot of this. This is really my soul sharing all this content and so forth. And it has, of course, shared with me on the human perspective, visions, and also have kind of appeared on different planets and so forth. And because of its level of visitation and the memory of those visitation and the sharing of it, you know, I see the uniqueness of what we have here. And the capacities that we have here. I'm not saying that this is the best, because there is no best, because everything is a game and each game is tuned to do something. This game has a lot of options in it. It's like a lot of high tech sort of thing in it, even though we haven't used not even a smidget amount of what we have as capacities, and we will, and we are already reactivating.
When you speak, when you make a comment like that, or when people make a comment about how much of the brain we don't use, or how much of the DNA we don't have access to, are you talking about the human entity?
Well, there's, you know, we're a makeup of the body, human entity, and soul that actually creates what we call a cluster consciousness called the mind. Okay? The brain is the computer. We use, yes, you're right, we use a very small amount of our capacities of the brain. The brain is a very powerful computer. Now, a lot of it has been impaired to a certain degree, and it is going through a process of repair because of, you know, all of the stuff that we've been exposed to, chemistry and whatever else, have altered the use of compartments within our brain. But yes, so the brain are what we call the mind, which is the combination of that. It's a consciousness that is made up of all of those facets. We're not using very much of it, even though we have a massive amount of resource. The same thing with our body and so forth, all of that, the body, the human entity, and capacities of all of that. So this is the whole makeup. So we're not using the computer. We're not using our overall consciousness we call the mind. We're not using the full capacities of what the soul is offering, what the multidimensional soul, the human entity, which is the earthbound soul, and also what the body has to offer. We're not using all that. But that's where we're bringing all of that back in line. I wanted to say one thing with all of that is part of all of this modifications that we're experiencing, which we're directly involved, even if we're not so conscious of it, is to prep us to be able to use more of that. A lot of the restorational component of it is really creating adjustments so that we can use more of the computer, the brain. We get to open up compartments within our mind, which is the of that. We're also allowing more input from our soul, from our human entity, and our body's innate abilities, and to come into all of that in place. Look at it this way. There's an inventor that's over 100 years old. He's created a machine, a device, a technology that supersedes anything that Tesla has even been able to do. This device from anything could create anything. For example, it's been experimented that they put some sand in the machine and convert that sand in pure gold.
Wow.
Gold that has never been mined that pure, because gold always has impurity in it. You know, this is why when we go in higher carats, it's a little more pure, but this is pure. To create anything from anything, that is a replication of taking energy from the field, modifying the codes, and changing its form. That's a replication of what we are capable of doing.
That's far out, man. That's
as
like
a human.
Yeah, because like you're saying earlier in the show, you were saying that, you know, you were talking about the relationship between the star family and how that all works, you know, so they're actually gleaning information from us to then create from where they, and so it's like actually three tiers. We're actually with that what did you call that, multi-layered consciousness that you call mind, which is made up of all of us, including the human aspect and the soul and so on. It's actually, like you just said, well, it's now got to a point where it's taking on more of the information or code or whatever you want to call it from the human entity.
Yes.
which it didn't have before. That's what it tells me. It didn't have it. Well, they didn't have it until they had us. That machine didn't have it, right? Until certain properties were brought together, which is actually code, knowing, or whatever you want to call it, to produce something this far out. Because at the end of the machine's output is actually the purer than what was before, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and the machine is also capable of regenerating your body, and this goes even beyond what they call the med beds and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually restore everything in its purest form, and you can change the form because it really replicates what exactly it is, and that is we're an energy field that we are creating from that source field, or what we call spirit field, what we call solid or real or whatever it is. So that was using a technology to emanate that, and that technology is available and has been available. Part of it has been replicated. Now, for you to use that device, you can only use it from a higher frequency. That
Makes
means
sense.
if you have negative intent,
Right.
the machine does not respond.
Wow.
Because it's there to support us. It was designed for that,
Mm-hmm.
to replicate higher realms.
Which is the same thing you just said an hour ago about manifestation.
Correct.
Like we can't have a faster process of manifestation or instant manifestation because we aren't of that frequency yet.
Correct.
So by the same token, in order to engage this invention, this device, you've got to have a certain level of frequency, and that's not about hierarchy. That's just about, frequency, right? I mean,
yes.
which also to me lends to, I have my own little things that I'm hung up on and this and that, but it's like what we consider inanimate is not inanimate.
Mm-hmm.
And if it were inanimate, why would your frequency have to be at a certain level to get the thing to operate and make pure gold or heal yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the same substance.
Exactly. And some of the military got a hold of the technology to a certain degree. They have replicated the machine, but they can barely use it.
Yeah.
They will refuse to create a device of destruction or an energy that is destructive or anything of that nature, because the intent, it looks at the intent, it picks up the frequency of the intent. That's a safeguard that was kind of put in there. What's the intent? The intent of the machine is to create an environment that hosts life.
That's fascinating.
Host advanced life, not hosting destruction or lower frequency or control.
That's fascinating because that's like having a talk with God. Like it's I want this and my intentions are right, and the God goddess, like, it doesn't know what your intentions are, you know what I mean? You can't fake frequency, right?
You can't fake it. You can't hide it, and so forth. So, when people ask me the other question is, how do I raise my frequency? Well, your frequency is naturally uplifting and high. What lowers it is what we've taken on, right, what we have identified ourselves as. And this is why it goes right back to the beginning where it says, who am I? The moment you have to ask, who am I? The moment we have to say, I'm this, you've lowered your frequency.
Right.
The moment you label yourself, you lower your frequency.
Right.
The moment you have traumatized yourself, you lowered frequency. The moment you made yourself a victim, you lowered your frequency. Every time you believe that something has higher authority to you, you lowered your frequency. If you are giving any power to that, you're lowering your frequency. The more you lower your frequency, less consciousness you have. The more you lower your frequency, less realization of who you are. Lower frequency that you have, less movement that you make. And that's the thing. And so all of this thing, and even the stuff we expose ourselves to, the substances that are designed to lower our frequency, the more we indulge in that, the more we consume that, we're more involved in that, they'll all lower your frequency. And I know I may have shared this before, and I've used this analogy or this example in many of my workshops many years ago. I mean, I used to use it all the time. We're like this hot air balloon. Okay. If you ever notice the hot air balloons, they have all these weights around the basket, bags of sand or whatever it is. They actually keep us on the ground, or, depending on how many you drop, will raise it. And the thing is, if you have to heat up the air in the balloon through the torch to lift that extra weight, that's one way that people look at it and say, well, I got to do stuff that raises my frequency. It's so much easier to drop the weights, which are all our stories, all our definitions, all of our programs, all of our trauma, all of that stuff. And then there's so little energy required, so less energy required to go higher and higher. So that's the thing. It's that simple. And you said it before, Todd. You said it's so simple. You know why? It is simple, but it's camouflaged as difficult.
Yeah.
And we're believing that
I like that. I like that example. It's like, it reminds me of what I refer to. I think there was a movie made, that's where I stole it, but the incredible lightness of being. Like that's such a great example. Like, you want to heat this up, or you want to just drop some of this weight, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just like, almost makes you feel stupid.
Well, the thing is too, even if you're talking about the drawing back here, if you had to look at it, say, well, how do I float? The more weight you put on, the more you're drawn to the bottom. And if you fight too, look, if you fall in the ocean, okay, or in a body of water of some sort, if you're going to struggle and try to come to the float, you end up pushing yourself down. But the moment you surrender, the moment you float, because naturally we will float, right? And if we're not fighting it, we're going to float. That's one example. But if we don't have all the weights, and the weights are like we talked about, the weights around the hot air balloon, the weights that we put ourselves in our boat, the
labels, even it makes you, what you're saying, it makes you think twice about a few things. Like, and I know I'm not trying to say anything that I'm saying is totally accurate, but at least, because I love people that make me think. So like, what if I get a tattoo? I'm an energetic being. I'm a frequency. What if I change my name? What if I dress different? What if I, there's so many factors here. And because we're in a physical vessel, I look at it and go, well, wait a minute. I have to give as much credence and respect to this solid energy that's no different than my other parts of what makes up that mind you're talking about. Like, wow, it makes you think about it. Well, it makes you more conscious. Yep. And I guess everybody has to find out for themselves whatever works for them. But I have to ask you one more question before we get out of here, because I'm going to run into this next show. But
you have one in 25 minutes, I think. Yeah. I want to get you
a couple of things I got to do. But so you're in the middle of this episode 69, and we actually covered a lot of this. I guess it just was meant to be. But I love this write-up that you did on it, because you always explain things in a very non-charged way, in a non-story way. You know what I mean? And I love it because it's basically, here's what you can do. We know what we can do. We know who we are. And you basically say, you just need to make up your mind if you want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, go play in that sandbox. But I love this because this is why I feel like this is why we're here. Like, we're actually here to drop those weights and go, let's fly, kind of thing. I want to, and thank you for that. This is episode 69. He's gotten into, I think it's the second video on 69, or is it the first video? But episode 69 on the Advancing Consciousness series, I'm going to watch it. And of course, Franco and Kimberly are putting these out couple of weeks and so on. Also, you've got something coming up on the 21st. 20 and
21st. Yes, we have a workshop.
Yeah.
So the information is on my Facebook page, and it's also on several of the pages. But I've also posted in the announcement. But I'm going to also put the link on there.
Good.
So it's the next level. It's really looking. We're now looking at outside of perceptions, beliefs, and so forth. And really, it's where we can come together in this workshop and work through to access levels of ourselves that we've believed and we've put so much power that are hard to access. We're also going to look at ways to actually create those reconnections with ourselves and so forth. So there's not to get into the whole description, 69 covers it, episode 69, a portion of it actually goes through. So if you watch episode 69, it actually describes a lot of what we're going to cover. And also, 69 is loaded with lots of information anyways. But so that's coming up on the 21st. It's available for us to be interactive live stream. And if you can't be with us those 2 days, because it is a 2-day, then you can actually get the video and audio recordings of it. You can order it. The beauty of it is we have a recommended amount of what it to offer for the episode, for the workshop, but you can offer whatever you can. So if you're short of money, you offer whatever. We have no restriction. If you're going to offer $5 or $1, whatever it is, you still get 2 days worth of content, which is like mind blowing. Or if you offer, and we've already had people that register. Some have offered more than the suggested, a lot more, or double the amount, or some, a lot less. But the reason we're doing it that way is so that we do not restrict anybody to have access to it.
Right.
It's not about the money, but at the same time, we appreciate the resources because that helps us tremendously to be able to continue doing the work and doing everything that we need to do while we're still playing in the money game. I don't do this work to make money. I don't do this work because it's a business for me. I do this work with love so that we assist each other. That's why I'm here. I came on the planet to assist humanity, and we do it together. I'm not here to disempower anybody. This is why I'm not coming in as a guru or an expert or anything. Yeah, I may share some pretty high content stuff, but all it is reminding you and triggering what everybody already knows and to bring ourselves more in an alignment. So the workshop is there. I'm going to put it in the comments section on the different platforms again at this point, as soon as I'm done, because Kimberly's not online. If she's still driving because she's going to her mother to help her.
Wait a minute. Let me just find it real quick. It'll be a lot easier because I saw that comment on the announcement, right? Because if I put it up here, it'll automatically go to all the 14 platforms right away. Okay. I wanted to say
I can post it right on your Todd live stream.
I got it right. I believe it's right here. Let me just see. Yes, I have it here.
I can do it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put this up because I can do it. If once we sign off, I won't be able to do it.
Okay, so it's there now.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't know how to put a comment here.
Somebody put it up. Who put that up? Franco put that up.
I just did.
Oh, you put it up, but that only went on one platform. Hang on, let me put it on all of them. Here we go.
Well, I give it to you so that you can just put it in.
There it is. Okay, so it's good to go. So I also put up Franco and Kimberly's PayPal, and I just want to, and I love the fact that you've created this this process of doing it, or this way of engaging it, where you have a suggested amount, and then but no one's turned down. It could be more, it could be less. And I just think that one of the things, and I know people have heard me talk about this, and I sound like a broken record, but there is a real truth, that we're building, and part of it is equal energy exchange. I call it 5D commerce. I mean, you can call it whatever you want to, but it's very important. It's very important because it's actually expanding this new grid. And this is the type of thing I believe anyway that our our Star Family brothers and sisters are learning from us. This is the type of thing we're kind of this laboratory. How far can you go? How deep can you go? How high can you go? So I did put up the PayPal 3 times. So please consider supporting Franco and Kimberly because and he said it in a very nice way. We just paid rent 8 days late over here. I know we all have to still work our way through this matrix, and it's a real thing. And believe me, $5, $10, $15, $20 helps the people like Franco and Kimberly not have to deal with the BS and the stress and the unnecessary stress. And it's all getting better. but still, it's a important part of our journey, because the equal energy exchange is one of those universal natural things that Franco was talking about. It's how we can align with that, and from that comes new births, new and bigger truths and loves and everything else that goes with it. But I'm running out of time.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you something, if you
Yep.
can answer it in 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just curious, and I'm sure others would be interested to know, what is your day like? And what I really mean by that is, do you have a certain routine? Do you have to do something to get to a certain level or frequency? Um, or are you at a point now where it's more of just a natural part of your lifestyle?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of back end work, and usually when I come out of the back end work, I have to do some reconnecting myself to kind of the earthly plane, like
Mhm.
be in the body again and to be able to function within the body. So there's a bit of a process that I do with myself to reconnect. Following that, then I just do some stuff on my physicality, because of the fact that the physicality is still going through some challenges. And then after that, no, I'm this stuff is always in my essence. I can't say that I don't have different fluctuations at times,
Mhm.
but those fluctuations are temporary, because it always goes back to
Right.
that.
Right.
Uh, I
But
don't
I
have
mean,
to.
when you say back, whatever you said, you connect every day to the aspects that you work with.
Yes.
It sounds like that's what you do, and
Yeah,
then
and
yeah.
the back end work is also working on the operating system of human nature and the planet and whatever else. So it's all software driven. So you're in there making adjustments, and then
Man, I'd love to be like, like I'd love to be like, I can see like a little, like a spelunker, working in a cave with one of those lights on. I'd like to be the light and like, okay, what's he doing? You know,
Yeah.
very cool.
The thing is, I don't have to go through all this process. Well, I got to raise my vibration or anything.
Yeah.
But when it does drop, I notice it, and then I just kind of take a few minutes to reconnect to my
Mm,
natural frequency, and that's it. I love doing what we do here, like what we did, or when I'm putting the episodes together, because um, I go into a zone. I go into this really high energy frequency that I love. It's like electricity to me, and it's like
mhm,
a life force that's even beyond the daily life force.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. And the next time I will even talk, because I wanted to bring up the kids thing, because I wanted to give an example of how with my kids, what I used to do, in the sense where I didn't try to mold them or anything like that. Whenever they had an idea, I would sit with them and say, okay, let's explore the idea. And what would your intent or outcome that you're expecting from this idea of yours, or this impulse that they had? And it allowed them to ground themselves. And when they did do that, they kind of say, oh, well, no, I don't think it's going where we want it to go, or whatever it is. And then they have had self adjustments, rather than me,
It
no,
sounds
don't
like
do
it's,
that.
and here we go again with the copy is a copy thing, right? Because it sounds like what your explanations have been on this show about how everything works, including simulations. So you're
Yeah,
basically running them through a simulation.
exactly. And that's how I did. And
Uh,
people thought I was crazy doing such a thing. And you go, no, you can't allow the kids to make their own decision. You can't allow kids to think for themselves. You got to train them. I go, no, 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 no. You can learn a lot of things from them.
no.
And from my kids too, I got a lot of amazing things out of them. Not that there was anything I didn't know, but at the
Mhm.
same time, it was great to hear from them, because
Yeah.
we would do exploration. It's like, okay, let's see if we imagine this and whatever else, and what would that look like, and so forth.
How,
And storytelling, I love the storytelling, because we just make up stories, and the stories were not limited to the stories that we normally would talk about.
right.
We never looked at the stories that the fairy tales that were written. No, we made stories that were multidimensional stories of
Yeah, exactly.
worlds that look different,
I
whatever it
want to.
was.
I want to. Dad, can you imagine being Franco's kid? I'd be like, Dad, 5 years old. Dad, I want to have a lemonade stand out in the front yard and collect some money. And then he takes me through the simulation. He's like, "Oh, well, what happens if a spaceship lands in the driveway?" It's not like a, a normal, okay. All good.
Yeah.
Love
All
you,
right. Anyways,
Franco.
thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you. Good
you.
luck,
Thank you,
Kimberly,
everybody.
with what you're doing. And
We love you, and we'll connect again soon.